And good morning. Welcome to Plugged In, James chapter 4, right after this. Well, welcome back to Plugged In, and we will be in James chapter 4 here in just a few moments. Want to share with you a little story to help illustrate where we're at for today. So there were two shopkeepers who were bitter rivals. Their stores were directly across the street from each other, and they would spend each day keeping track of the other person's business. If one got a customer, he would smile in triumph over his rival. One night, an angel appeared to one of the shopkeepers in a dream, and he said, "I will give you anything you ask, but whatever you receive, your competitor will receive twice as much. Would you like to be rich? Then you can be rich, but he will be twice as wealthy. Do you wish to live a long, healthy life? You can, but he will live even longer and even healthier. What is your desire?" The man frowned. He thought for a moment, and then he said, "Here is my request. Strike me blind in one eye." In the Old Testament book of Exodus, we read about a man named Moses who met with God up on top of a mountain and received from God a list of commandments that were written on stone tablets. We know that list to be the 10 Commandments. They are, by the way, commandments, not suggestions. And the last commandment goes like this: "You shall not covet your neighbor's house. You shall not covet your neighbor's wife, or his manservant or maidservant, his ox or donkey, or anything that belongs to your neighbor." To covet means to wish that you had the possessions of others. It goes far beyond simply admiring someone else's possessions, or even thinking, "Wow, I'd like to have one of those." Coveting includes envy. What we mean by that is there's this resentment to the fact that others have what you don't. To covet is to also be jealous as well. One anonymous writer said this: "Jealousy is the horse the devil likes to ride." We have slowly been combing through the letter that James wrote to scattered Christians because of their faith. We find ourselves in James chapter 4, finally. And I want to draw your attention to just verse 1 because we see that there's some conflicts and disputes that James wants to address. And so here's what he says. Actually, he asks, "What causes fights and quarrels among you? Don't they come from your desires that battle within you? Attitudes of jealousy and envy will always create opportunities for the devil to do some real damage, and especially in the body of Christ. These attitudes stem from a desire inside of us that we allow to get out of control. It might be desires for more possessions, more money, more power, more status, more recognition, more likes on Facebook. When we want something badly enough to fulfill these desires, we often fight in order to do so. James actually says in verse 2, which is not on the screen, but following in verse 2, it says this: you want something, but don't get it. You kill and covet, but you cannot have what you want. Now, the killing that James is referring to there could be taken in a figurative way, like killing a person's character or reputation. We just left the chapter that talks about the tongue and how damaging it can be. So maybe the killing comes by way of gossip or slander of someone's reputation. Unfortunately, the killing that he's referring to could also be that of, in a literal sense. We go all the way back to the book of Genesis and find out that because of jealousy, it was Cain who killed his brother Abel. Many of us have heard stories of killings that happened solely based on a spirit of jealousy. Whichever the case is, it is not healthy, and especially, again, among the believers in the body of Christ. There is a downward spiral that occurs from our desires. You see, unchecked desires lead to not asking God, which leads to coveting and wrong motives, and that leads to fights and quarrels, and it leads to church life marked by slander, judging of others, name-calling, boasting, and backbiting. Something has to be done to stop the downward spiral. So next week we're going to discuss more about what that is. I want to give you a teaser that is found in James chapter 4, beginning verse 7. Submit yourselves then to God. I want to thank you for joining me this week, as you've done each week, and pass this on to other people. We hope that you have a wonderful week, and we'll see you next week on Plugged In.